something for you to sign?
Not until my lawyer reads it.
Okay. Yeah, make sure you read it, yeah.
It's coming momentarily.
All right, we are ready to go. So, good evening. It's Thursday, July 6th, and this is the Littleton Planning Board meeting. So let's begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you so much. So Chair Montanari is not joining us this evening, so I'll be chairing this meeting. And on tonight's agenda, we actually have a shortened agenda. 550 Newtown Road is to be continued. Then we will talk about board business. Then 555 Newtown Road will also be continued, as I understand.
Correct.
And then the zoning bylaw for the zoning bylaw amendment for the firearms business bylaw begins at 7:30. So that's what we have for this evening. So for the 550 Newtown Road storage facility, could I get a motion, please, to continue that hearing?
I so move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we need a date and time certain. So on the planning board meeting, draft planning board meeting schedule, we have Thursday, August 3rd as a regular meeting date. Is that gonna work for everybody?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Thursday, August 3rd, that's our usual meeting date?
So that's the first Thursday in August?
Yes.
Okay.
So what time would we want to schedule that?
So 5:50 Newtown, I would recommend if we start at 6 o'clock, we could do this one right at 6:15.
Are they gonna be here this time?
Yes, they weren't available for this one and had just gotten the peer review comments, so they requested for August. So Thursday, August 3rd at 6:15 PM for the 550 Newtown Road continued public hearing.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, that's good. So we can move on then to board business. We have minutes from the prior meeting of June 8th. Does anyone else have any comments from the minutes of June 8th?
No, I
I
don't.
thought they were good.
I had a couple comments. So one, it's more of a request than anything else. The Helvetica font is a little tough to read. If it would be possible to make it in a sans serif, that would be awesome. These old eyes just don't do well with that. And then 1F, it says no change to the current procedure, so I would just recommend that we identify what the current procedure is, just so it's clear on the way that we're handling, I guess it's the bills and billing and payroll.
Mm-hmm.
And then on page 4, Mr. Mountain's comment about which parcel is best. It says that it's SGOD 1, but it can be found on the video at 2:05. He actually said the best one is the orange parcel. Those are his words, so just want to make sure that, and the orange parcel is not the SGOD 1, so I just want to make sure that that was correct.
And that was, who was speaking at that time?
It's on page 4,
Mhm.
Mr. Mountain.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm happy to make those corrections.
Awesome. Thanks, Maren. All right, and then bills, I think we've got those all signed off.
So, do you want to approve those with the corrections, or do you want to see those again?
We can go ahead and just see them again, that's fine. Then we'll just know to,
Well, my recommendation is to get them approved now and those minutes, but it's up to you guys. Sorry.
you guys
I
want to
should
approve them
have
now
clarified.
with those
Let's do that.
I'll
corrections?
approve them as amended.
Okay. So motion to,
Motion to approve as amended.
okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, yeah, thank you.
All right, so then the bills, did you want to just quickly explain those, Maren?
Yep, absolutely. So we have 4 bills. First is Innes Associates for the MBTA Communities work under the EEA Planning Assistance Grant. That was her bill for the work in, for the June work that she did. Lowell Publishing Company, it's a bill for the public hearing notice for tonight's public hearing on the firearm zoning bylaw, and 2 bills from Green International, one for peer review services for 265 Foster Street, and one for peer review services for the 254 to 260 Air Road.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so moving along, we're on member input. So how about we start with Lisa?
I have no input.
Okay.
I don't think I
Bartlett?
have any.
I'll speak to the open space and recreational plan. We had a community workshop, which I thought was pretty successful. There were a lot of people there, and they had interesting comments. And we've had a meeting since then. I mean, I'm endlessly amazed at the things people come up with that I would never, like, we want something like the Acton Arboretum here in town. I never would have thought that, but, why not? Someone can get that going, let's go.
Sure.
Anyway, so, but that's an ongoing process. The goal is to have the, the report. There's a third public input session and then a report in the fall, which I guess is we have a deadline. Then the other, you picked up the last CPC meeting,
Yes, I did.
and I need to get sworn in so that I can, pick that up. And the Transportation Advisory Committee is also in the process of a planning report for the, basically the bike and pedestrian master plan. Or was that anyway, whatever. And they've had some interesting, I've been driving around town thinking about some of the suggestions they've made, and it's interesting. So, but that's a process that will wind up with the issuing of a master plan in, I believe, the fall. Anyway, so that's my input.
Yeah, just to piggyback on the bicycle and pedestrian master plan, I believe if everything goes according to schedule, that the MAPC hopes to present that plan, draft plan to the select board for the meeting of August 14th.
Okay.
So if
Okay.
all the scheduling works out.
Yeah.
but, yeah.
So I found it a little frustrating with these concurrent planning, and I don't know how to do anything about these concurrent planning efforts that really didn't interact too much. A lot of people who came to the
Yeah, OSRP.
OSRP had never heard about, these were people who obviously would have been interested in that, had never heard about it. And this is the ongoing thing about how we get the word out and this and that and the other thing. And despite that, I know that they had over 300 responses to the questionnaire for the OSRP survey, which is good.
Is it out of 10,000 people who
Well,
live
but
here?
not everyone would be I don't know. They
Yeah.
thought it was a pretty good,
Mhm.
I mean, that's just
I guess
at
if
at
your
that point.
expectations are low, then, you
Well,
know.
but, once again, who's interested, and they're trying to make it, they're trying to peg it to statistically relevant. I don't know how they do it, but the way they set it up, they're trying to actually do it in a way that I think they can extrapolate. I don't know. We'll see. But given that the continuing, response, and I feel the same way, is that I didn't know about it, what's going on, da, 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 da. We talked about various methods of getting out, and I think Alicia Day has done a great job in getting out info about the survey with a, QR code and putting it like at the library. We talked about putting it at the transfer station where everyone's renewing their, their stickers. They have to go up to the office, So, I don't know. I think there's just a limit. When we look at the number of town meetings, there's just a limit, to the input you can get, but you have to try. Anyway. And I have had occasion, speaking of the firearms, just, for a minute, I do a lot of work in Wellesley, and I was chatting with the building inspector, and I said, have you ever had any enforcement requests for your, gun retail bylaw? And he goes, what are you talking about? And he basically never heard of it. No one I've talked to in Wellesley has ever heard of it, so anyway.
It hasn't come into use yet.
It has not come into use.
It's because they don't have, how many do we have? Gun dealers
No.
in town.
Yeah.
That's probably
I know.
why.
And partly, I think they have this tradition of pushing all for a while, they didn't have like liquor licenses in town, which, was crazy. And they view it as, well, we'll push it to the neighboring towns. So, anyway. So if you want booze, you have to go to Natick. If you want, oh, yeah, gun dealers, apparently, they're in Natick. So, anyway.
Oh, I should mention when I said I had nothing, the master plan committee that I sit on, it has not met yet. Apparently, they were waiting, we have been waiting to find out who the representatives were from select board and school board, so we now have that. So I would suspect a meeting would be forthcoming.
Okay. Great. Something I had heard during this election season was just that folks are already thinking about the next iteration of the master plan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's certainly time for a new one.
So,
One thing that I picked up on, and hopefully this will be reflected in the OSRP report, is the planner, in his closing remarks, talked about about the rural nature of Littleton, which is a contentious issue because we're bisected by the major routes in New England. We have industry, we have office, we have, but we also have rural aspects. And, it's something that we hear a lot, oh, it's a country town, and, this and that. And sometimes it's hard to square what's actually happening in town with this, feeling. And I hope that, and I told his colleague at our last meeting that I would really like to see the transcript of that, because he gave a little blurb about, in his view, a suburb was something where there was open space that was just carved out of complete development. Where you basically have a pattern of development and then there's some open space in it. And a rural space was where you had development that was centering, open space, which he said, I would definitely characterize Littleton in that. And that's not to say that there should be no development here, it's just that it's a development pattern that he felt was consistent with what a lot of people think about our town. So I was interested in that.
Yeah, I always appreciate, it was probably Peter Flinker.
It was
So
Peter
I
Flinker.
appreciate the way he can bring different concepts together.
Yeah,
And he knows how hard Littleton has worked on trying to move future development to the town center and
Mhm.
to near the train station in
In
commercial
previously
districts.
developed areas.
Yeah, that make, yeah,
Yeah.
previously developed
Designated.
areas, and hopefully relieving some of the development pressures on the open space that's not controlled by the town, open fields.
So I'm looking forward to the report. They did a lot of mapping, a lot of attendee-based comments, and it was very interesting.
It was well attended
Yeah.
from,
Yeah,
as
as these
those
go.
kind of activities go,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep. And I'm gonna riff on something else you said too, about interactions between some of the various planning activities. MAPC, who is the consultant for the bicycle and pedestrian plan, has been coordinating with Dodson Flinker
Right.
on open space, and coordinating closely with the highway department on the complete streets plan update. So that coordination is happening.
Okay.
But I
But
also feel
it-
the pain of all those different
Well,
planning.
no,
things going on at
that's
once.
great, but
Yeah.
people aren't, meshing.
Yeah.
The people who are interested in the bicycle pedestrian and the open space recreation don't seem to be, interacting. So I don't know what we can do.
And do you think that would be helpful to have folks interact more on that?
Well, on
particular
those two
subject?
things, because with the open space and recreation, there was a lot of bike-oriented, not a lot, there was some. I mean, it was really interesting because there were, I was joking because I never, and maybe you felt the same way, I saw some incredibly fit people at that meeting,
Yes.
which normally you don't see at Littleton meetings. So there was a constituency for, this type of thing, and
The athletic
the
constituency.
athletic constituency, and not just playing field athletics, but the, road running and biking and,
Yeah. Well, since you're on that, what about suggesting that in the fall they have a joint meeting?
I don't know if that
Bike and
works.
pedestrian plans should
Yeah.
be done by
Yeah,
then. The
yeah.
consultants have
Yeah,
extended.
they started
hours,
earlier, yeah, and this, the OSRPC was like we were under a deadline to even get out the RFP, which just went out, at the beginning at the end of the spring, so.
Yeah, no, we felt very good about getting the consultants together and,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and communicating. So,
Yeah.
Well, I guess I meant more getting them together so that they can just be sure that they're on board with understanding what the new master plan
Well-
looks like, yeah.
Apparently, Maren says they are interacting,
Good,
yeah.
cool. Alrighty. Thanks, Jeff. Anything else? Well, when you get onto CPC, one of the things that is sort of working its way through right now is some of the dollars from development projects need to make sure to go from the one current bucket that they're in through CPC so that they can get the proper matching to then be able to go to Affordable Housing Trust. So that's something that's currently in the works. Lucy is helping on that, so just so you're aware. So one of the things that I have, that I wanted to bring up is the idea of being able to represent the projects that are currently going on around town that perhaps residents might be a little confused about, or they just might not know about. Because a lot of what I heard recently was that there's a lot of information, but there isn't anything that really easily synthesizes it to the point of, how can we best communicate to the residents? And so one of the ways that I talked about with Mark Montanari, Ryan, and Gary Wilson recently was that if we can have a consistent agenda item that speaks to some of the key projects in town so that folks are constantly updated. There's going to be a planning board meeting, they can expect to hear an update about what's going on some of the major projects. And so, as an example, the whole point of, say, we know that there's going to be a lot coming up on, say, King Street Common or the MBTA communities, and whether it's on our agenda, being able to update folks to say, this is where we are now. And so that way there's a consistent communication about those major projects, because it's one of the things that folks have said, there just isn't that cohesive, what's really going on with this project sort of perspective. Ryan also mentioned that he would talk with LCTV folks and see if maybe those particular discussions could become snippets so that in addition to seeing the commentary, so that in addition to the meetings, there could also be that particular commentary about projects. And so select board could do it, we could do it as well.
I want to expand on that and wonder about, like, the post-approval. Like, I think Hager Homestead is a great example of eliciting a lot of comment. Like, first of all, people go, what is this? Then they go, they don't like it or they like it or whatever. But especially with what's happening with the house, which, I don't think they asked us to tear it down, and we said no, and that they've sort of done it anyway. But I think, talking with the owners, it's a really unusual project with the co-housing, and it has some deeply affordable units, and I think that that's lost in the sauce of people driving by and seeing what's going on. And, benefit to the town with the open space beyond and, various things. And I don't know, I mean, is there any way of asking, like a little, almost like a press release from the developer about, what the status of it is, or, what the schedule, the schedule is really drawn out. But anyway, I don't know.
Yeah, well-
I'm curious about so much going on in that project.
Right, and we're not staffed to provide updates.
Of course not, yeah.
And if there's, a group of projects that the board agrees on that they would like updates on, I would recommend each board member or somebody on the board, reach out and get the updates and provide them at a meeting if you want to,
Okay.
have that added to the agenda. It's just not
Yeah.
something that. there's
Yeah, and this
any way
isn't
to
intended
add.
to make more work, Maren,
Yeah.
from your perspective, but rather to say what is the information that primarily the chair would have on a particular project. So that's the kind of thing that we're talking about. But to your point about any post-approved projects like Hager, because you're right, I've received quite a few questions about that as well. Folks just want to know what's going on there.
Yeah, what is it? So maybe I can get a contact from you and just reach out and, I don't think they're under any obligation, but I think they should as a part of the community to, we're planning on the first people moving in X, this is, Y, anyway.
I know that Historical Commission is going to be talking about it at their meeting in July. I don't have the date for that, but she indicated that they would be discussing what's going on. Did you want to say anything more about that project, Maren?
Just that they are working closely with the building department on the ongoing construction.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, kind of circling back, is if we have this on our agenda, so it would be board business, and then there would be the name of the project or projects that we want to just revisit every time until there's no need to revisit them, and we could add another one. Again, a quick 1 to 2 minute on each of them from the chair, and Mark was in the meeting, so he was a part of being able to agree to doing this. So what projects would you think would be important for us to do that for?
Well, Hager, 550,
Northern Bank,
yeah.
Mill,
yeah, 455 or whatever address, 410 King or Great Road.
Hager, King Street Common, you said Northern Bank?
Yeah.
And Littleton Station.
yeah, the station is,
But that
it's
hasn't
not
been
a real,
approved yet, yeah.
it's not a real project, but
Yeah.
there's a
But-
lot of
but
curiosity.
It is, though. I mean, it is and it isn't. You
Well,
know,
it's,
in
it's
that
a,
it-
it's a zoning
it was,
project,
and
but it's
then-
not a,
Oh, yeah, you mean something that's actually under,
well, that's, I mean, we're certainly dealing with it, and I think it's worth updating people you know, the station project, but it's
well,
just,
technically, 550 King, nothing's going on there yet, technically,
Right.
right?
Well, there are contracts and, you
Yeah,
know, the works
yeah.
and stuff like that, yeah. So getting that kind of comprehensively, because you're right, on that last one with King Street Common, right? They've been working with Light and Water for sewer, working with Select Board. We have not seen anything yet, but those are the different components that, again, if we bring it all together, the residents will have a better picture of what's
Right.
going on with the project as a whole, rather than hearing a snippet here or a snippet there.
Assuming they listen to the meetings or attend.
Right, and, yes, and to your earlier point, we have to try different methods of outreach,
Yeah.
so.
Well, right now, it's just a matter of, a lot of these projects, they're just anecdote, oh, I heard this, I heard that. It wouldn't be bad to, you know, I mean, obviously, I'm interested in Northern Bank, it's in my front yard, and all I can tell you is that they've demolished several buildings, and they've done it very workmanlike, and that's all I know. But there might be other info, maybe I'll get a contact for that and just say, give us an update.
you know,
It seems to me like this is something that should be coming from the town administrator. You know, like the things that are going on in town. I mean, who it comes from doesn't really matter, but you're right, there is no place, and I know people keep talking about, well, we don't have a newspaper. Well, lots of towns don't have newspapers. So, I don't know.
Well, again, Select Board would do theirs.
Right,
We would
right.
do ours, and it's sort of like
Yeah, you're
call it
piecemealing
a
it.
relay rally, or a relay, where,
Yeah.
you know, the next person takes it,
Right.
and so that way we try to keep everybody involved.
Yeah.
But then
So
what do
I
you
would
do? Just
suggest
post?
that- I would suggest that when the town administrator's office was fully staffed, they didn't have time for it then. Now that they're understaffed.
Oh,
clearly
oh,
won't
absolutely. No,
have
I
time
know.
for it. But I
Yeah.
do like that a lot of the direction on what information you're hoping to find to share is coming from the board members, because you're the ones that are out there and you hear the questions from your friends and neighbors. So you
Well,
have
and it
a
might
list
just
of
be a
things
matter
that-
if we reach out, it might just, you know, like Lapoli, they have like a PR operation, you know, they may have something very easily able to just put something out, even though it may be meaningless. You know, I don't know, I just think that, they're gonna be, these projects are gonna be part of the community, and they should sort of, at this point, begin to be part of the community and communicate.
That's a good point,
I mean,
and we can ask for that.
could we go back to, I mean, you mentioned having something on television, on the LCTV. Could we ask them to do a half-hour Reader's Digest version of the town meetings once a week or something? You know, just a 5-minute piece from some of the meetings?
That I don't know, but that would be a Ryan question, so. Yeah, and
Like a digest of meetings this week or something.
Yeah,
well,
Or even on a monthly basis. I mean, every week might be.
it might be too much, but certainly every month.
yeah.
But then again, I get back to how many people actually watch LCTV.
I think one of the other ideas is to be able to have that link from LCTV, and various folks will take it, run with it, and stick it on social media.
Yeah, no, yeah, you're right, yeah, okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. So. Thanks, Bartlett. So, real quick, before we get past our time frame, and then we can come back to talking board business. So, at 7 PM, we have our 555 Newtown Road open space shared driveway application, and it is to be continued, so we need to select a date.
Yep, sorry, the Thursday, August 10th,
Third?
sorry. Yes,
No, not another meeting.
no, exactly, not another meeting. So my recommendation on where stretch this out a little bit. My recommendation on where that development proposal is right now is that it's now ready for peer review. So I would recommend continuing till the August 3rd meeting, give a chance for the peer review comments to come in and the developer to digest those.
And this is 555.
555 Skyview Lane. The developer hoped to be able to come tonight. The initial design engineer, Matt Waterman, was on vacation. His stand-in was called away on family emergency. So at that point, Steve requested it be continued, with apologies that it was a late, to happen late. So if we do August 3rd,
So, okay, I mean, from the peer review, the main concern is the water off the hill. And does the peer reviewers, I mean, I know they're required to, handle all the water from the property on the property, but is that gonna be a special focus of the peer review, or?
yeah, they have that understanding, but for this site in particular, it is a concern. And our contract with them has them look at it both ways, both from the planning board point of view, where you have to control the water and disperse it accordingly, but also from the wetlands side of it for Conservation Commission, that you have to keep flow of water going to the existing wetlands. So they have both of those requirements in their
Okay.
Yeah,
in
in
their
addition-
stormwater peer review.
Yeah, in addition to the open space shared driveway, it's also stormwater permit, so
Yeah.
it's all three.
Yeah, so there is a detailed drainage design that ostensibly has been designed to take that into account. Peer review will help to,
To verify that.
yeah.
Yeah, I looked through the package, and I was a little concerned because they included the original approved. There was a 4-lot
Yes.
approved with a
Subdivision, right.
subdivision, yeah, with the cul-de-sac and everything. I'm going, wait, that's not what, and then I, scrolled down and.
Right,
yeah.
included as the proof plan for a open space special permit.
Okay.
That was the reason for including that.
And what about the concern of the fire department for that second egress? Is that, that's
Other
gonna be
site,
addressed?
that's the other site, that's across the street.
Oh, that's right, yeah, you're right, sorry about that.
But yes, fire department
Yeah.
is also, will be also weighing in on the detailed plans for Skyview Lane, and being
Okay.
able to access that.
So do we have a time we want to,
Thank you. So if we do that one
That
back
down.
to back at 6:45 PM on Thursday, August 3rd.
sounds good, so we have a motion to have 555 Newtown Road continued to Thursday, August 3rd at 6:45 PM.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Can
Yes.
I speak? And I imagine you want me here for the recording. Don McIver, 43 Foster Street. I came here for the 555 Newtown Road subdivision. And just as a point of interest, when the 4-lot subdivision was approved, it was Steve Marsh who was involved in most of that. And the reason why it wasn't built was too expensive. What was approved was too costly for them to put in place. And so, anyway, that's just a note. Just also a comment about updates and so on. One of the models I've seen have been very good is done by Concord. I've been involved very much with the Nagog Pond Water Treatment Plant of Acton, mostly ghostwriting things for Acton and dealing with selectmen and so on. And what they've done now in Acton is they have updates for that project, because it's a major project, a lot of people are concerned, there was litigation and so on. So they post things on their website for either the water department or whoever is doing it. And that's fine, but it's very hard to track that. You know, it's much like meetings. You know, no one tells you about anything, and you know, if you find it, that's great, but most often you don't. So it's nice having it consolidated someplace with an update, but you want to know when that changes. So what they've done in Concord for the Nagog Pond project is they'll update it in one standard place, but then they send out a notification about it being updated. So, you know, it's a push technology. You know, people registered, they're interested in this, and they get a notification that it's been updated and to go look at that website. And the way you can do the notifications easily is actually through Google Groups. Some groups do that just for announcements of events. And it's a very simple technique. I don't know what's involved with the town for doing notifications in general, but in the case of wanting to follow an update, you may be interested in just one or two projects, not everything happening in town. So that's an effective way to make it work. And the Google Groups essentially is free and can be specialized for one particular project. I would think a project of great interest is what's happening with the redevelopment of the IBM site. I would think you would have a lot of people interested in understanding that and be interested when something's happened differently.
So I would like to know what are they doing at the intersection of Neshoba Road and Great Road?
Okay,
Since you seem to know what's going on.
I can tell you, in the very beginning, and I say this, at one point I was Director of Natural Resources in Concord.
Yeah.
So I have some sort of insight as to the thinking and so on. Originally, they decided that they owned all Nagog Pond, which wasn't true. There's a colonial law saying that it's owned by the public. So there's litigation for various things. They had some huge plan that would cut down some of the forests in Acton and would put in solar panels, all sorts of things DEP does not approve of. So they've gone through various versions. So what happened was that they have a water treatment plant already with intake in the Acton side, Fire Cove. It's dated, and that water gets piped out to very close to where the Bruce Freeman Trail overpass is. And Concord had a grandiose plan. I wrote actually a lot of the notification to DEP objecting about it, in part because there's probably Native American artifacts within, submersed about 10 feet in the water. Nagog Pond has risen about 10 feet since colonial times through check dams, and that's true of a lot of the ponds around here. So there was some interest from the Native American aspect about if they're going to drain that section where they have the water treatment plant, which was in their plan to drain part of it, that they should have a Native American aware archaeologists there to see if there's anything that should be protected. They were concerned, I think, that sign might be found there, so they changed their entire plan. So what was changed was that they would improve the intake pipe from the middle of the lake in the Acton part, not the Littleton part. And to do that, they built close to the Nagog Pond Mall in Neshoba Road with 119-2A. So they put together a long pipe. They had to build a dock there. They own that land where they are, put a dock there, float it out and sink it in the Acton part, making sure they didn't touch the Littleton part, the land underwater. So that's what they've been doing.
Okay.
So they will be dismantling that. And where they're putting the water treatment plant is where I've suggested originally in the beginning, but it took them a long time to get there, is close to the Light and Water Department by the Reformatory Circle.
Mhm.
You see construction going on
Yeah.
there. The Light and Water Department for Concord has a lot of land there. And I
Oh, yeah,
think,
there's a big pile of cut down trees there right now.
excuse me?
There's a big pile of trees that have been cut down right there.
Yeah, exactly, a lot of land being moved
Right.
There's a
about.
lot of dirt. and
So it
rock.
makes sense because it's on their land and they can control it. And it also allows them to expand. I think one of the things that helped that along the way, other than various actions of the act and trying to prevent them from doing things they weren't supposed to do, was that they also realized they had to deal with PFAS. So they needed a little more room, a little more flexibility, which is an intelligent thing to do when you build anything. You plan for expansion, for not only for things you know that might happen in the future, but also things that might not happen, that you don't know about, surprise things. So that's what they're doing. They're going to where they should have built it in the beginning, have a little more room, and they'll pipe the water down there and add chemicals and do the filtration there.
Okay,
So,
great.
but yeah, it's
I've
been a
been
mystery
wondering.
to a lot of people.
Yeah. Well,
But
yeah,
it's-
it
it's
looked like a
also-
barge or something, and I
Yeah,
guess
they
it
had a
was,
march,
yeah.
so it's an
yeah.
interesting thing, and it
Yeah.
has been permitted through the Acton Conservation Commission, because
Mhm.
it's a wetland, it's land underwater and the edge of it. So Acton does own a lot of parcels along the Gog Pond in both, I'm sorry, Concord owns a lot of the parcels in both Acton and Littleton. There are people in Littleton who have come forward that at the time were concerned that none of the land close to Nagog Pond was being protected. So they went to Concord and said, well, protect it, and Concord did buy those parcels to protect it. So it's very curious that here we are, Littleton, Acton boundary, and neither town really did much to protect the land by that water body, even though everyone had rights to that water body, and that would have been the intelligent thing to do at the time. So, anyway,
Don, thank you so much for that information.
That's
Good to
great.
know.
okay, a little bit more than I planned, but good, and I look forward to 555 Newtown Road.
Okay,
All right,
thank you.
thank you for
Thank you.
coming.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, so back to our board business. Just confirming, so the 4 projects that we want to try to get updates for on the agenda are Hager, the King Street Common, 55410, Northern Bank, and Littleton Station. And we'll start out, and if you think the comments need to change in any way, we can update them as we go. If it's missing something or too short, too long. So the next is our planning board meeting schedule, and then the retreat. So can everybody make these meetings that Maren has provided for us?
No, I cannot. Which one's it? Lauren, I'm sorry, I've got to pull up. I will be out of the country for September 21st and October, so that's an extra one, the October 12th one. So the only regular one I'll miss is October 12th.
So what's SNEPA?
Southern New England American Planning Association.
Okay.
And that would,
So-
just a request, just the question whether or not it's okay to move that meeting till the meeting of October 5th, It usually would
To the
be October
12th.
5th, move that to the
To the
12th, thank
12th,
you.
yeah.
So we really do need the July 20th,
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yeah, and actually a quick update on July 20th. Big discussion is, Emily and Chris will be here to discuss MBTA communities with the next iteration of,
scenarios.
scenarios, thank you, that you had asked for. And Emily can provide an updated timeline for making Fall Town Meeting. And then may have the application for redevelopment of 12 Robinson Road. And just heard today from TEC that we may have an application for a preliminary subdivision plan for King Street Commons.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so if we had a second meeting in September, then, Delisa, is there another date in September that would work?
I leave on the 18th,
Okay.
so,
So it'd have to literally be the following week's the 7th and then like the 14th.
yeah.
Well, I mean,
Oh,
other than
except
gathering
I'm-
information, do we have?
Except I'm out of town the week of the 4th, too, of September. Retirement is so great. No, so I could do the week of the 11th. Sorry, guys.
So it looks like we should probably keep the 21st if Delisa's going to be gone and try to work that.
What do you mean?
Well, if you're going to be gone the week of September 10th,
No.
Oh.
No, I'll be there.
Oh,
No, I'll be
okay.
in town the
Okay.
week of September 10th. So if
Oh,
you wanted
okay.
to move the extra one.
to like,
Oh, yeah.
because you just said the 14th.
Yeah, you're right, yeah.
So you can make the regular meeting,
No,
but
the
it's the extra
well, the
meeting.
7th one, I would have to zoom in on that one.
Okay.
And then an extra one I could do the following week.
But not the 14th.
No, the 14th I could.
Oh, you can?
Yeah.
You can do September
Yep.
14th.
Yeah.
Okay,
I was just any time the week of the 11th.
okay, got it. I think that would be helpful because that's usually the real crunch time right before town meeting stuff.
Yeah, and we think that Fall Town meeting is probably Wednesday, November 1, so September, October will probably be busy. And it's good to have a schedule just to shoot for, and then if it changes over time, you know, that's not a big problem, it's just always easier to have the dates penciled in.
You guys good on the 14th?
I think I'm good with all of these dates.
Okay. So changing September 21 to the 14th then? We good? And then Delisa's not here on the 12th,
No,
so,
I can't zoom in.
and she's not here on the 5th either, so might as well keep it on the 12th then. Does that sound right, Maren? We'll keep it
Yeah.
on the 12th? Okay. So Thursday, September 21, move to the 14th, and Thursday, October 12th stays as is. Any other dates of concern? No. Okay. Mara, I did want to ask, you have on here the ATP interviews. Do we have anyone yet?
No,
No.
no.
Okay.
Is it a summer thing or a lack of interest thing?
A lack of time on both my part and HR's part.
Okay.
Okay, so then, retreat. So our last retreat was 2 years ago, and so I know that I would like to propose a retreat, and here's a thought for everyone to maybe make it a little more palatable, is we're having our meeting on July 20th, right? And so that starts at 6:30. What if we had our retreat portion start like at 5 or 5:30, get something to eat, and then we head into our meeting? Then we don't have to have a separate retreat.
Okay.
July 20th?
What day was that? What were you proposing?
Our retreat, so,
Which meeting?
for Thursday, July 20th.
Okay.
Well, let's talk about, that sounds fine. Do we want to, where do we want to do this? How do we want to do the food? What's the deal?
Lauren, can we just do it here?
As far as I know, yeah.
Yeah, if the room's available, we could just sit in here.
Okay.
We've had El Forno the last 2 times.
That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
I don't remember the last one.
We were at the
Was that
police
fire-
station.
The police station, I do remember that one.
Yeah.
So July 20th will start at what time then?
5.
5, okay.
Or do you want to, is an hour enough? Do you want to push the meeting to 6:30?
Yeah, the meeting,
It's 6 now.
oh, it's 6 now, okay.
You haven't posted that yet or anything?
No,
yeah.
not yet.
We could start it at 6:30.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, it's gonna run a little late, because we have, board business, we'll have, MBTA communities discussion, informal discussion with the developer's representative for 245 Foster Street. The King Street Commons preliminary subdivision, either that week or, August 3rd, depending on when they can get their application materials together. And same for 12 Robinson Road, either the 20th or the 3rd to start that. And then on the, while I'm thinking of it, on the 3rd, just got a heads up that Sanctuary Medicinals is putting their application together to renew their special permits and to, for an expansion. And they're shooting for the August 3rd meeting as well, so we have
So,
board business.
245 Foster, remind,
The
that's,
the longs.
The longs,
parcel,
okay. and when you say the developer's representative, is that the Nordblom? Or the, whomever, someone spoke to us
Yeah,
before?
the last, was, Christine Hong and Bucky. But I'm not remembering his full name, two attorneys.
Oh, okay, attorneys, okay, because we at one point had someone from Nordblom come in.
Mhm.
Anyway,
Okay, so we're good.
well, if it's gonna be long, it's better to have food.
There you go.
Yeah, that'll be tight for me, but I can do it, I think.
It's food, Bartlett. You can do it.
No,
Okay, so, thank you, everyone. So that's 5 to 6:30 for the retreat, and the regular meeting will start at 6:30 on Thursday, July 20th. Okay. All right, so we are, oh, I know, I wanted to ask, so a couple of topics to discuss. I mean, is there anything in particular that you feel that you would like to discuss at the retreat, so we could add that to the agenda?
I've been wondering if it would be possible somehow to get a transfer of development rights bylaw that just would permit such a thing without, limiting it to any particular method. So that, if somebody owns 2 parcels in town, that, he could request transferring rights from one to the other. I mean, just in the interest of controlling where density goes.
We can.
I mean, like, we can talk about
Yeah.
that. I mean, because I think I have some comments.
Lisa, is there anything in particular you'd like to discuss at the retreat?
Not that I can think of off the top of my head, I mean, besides, you know, communication with residents.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
that's
a good
what
one.
seems to run into so much backlash, you know,
Yeah.
just the whole communication.
Yep, okay, that's a good one. Another one that I was thinking about is the whole notion of this big project coming of King Street Common, and I think we've heard that people are so inquisitive about it, and so I know that our work is primarily, it's what gets brought to us, but I also wonder if there's a component that we can feed back or share back to the Poli companies in this sense, because it is such a big project, it is impacting folks. And rather than just having them bring stuff to us, can we then provide information back that we're hearing from the town? So that it does create much more of a open communication and not just when they're here. And how do we do that? So for example, you know, putting on your marketing hat and being able to figure out, well, what is it that folks would want to see there? Is there any way to be able to help provide those, you know, ideas to them? What other forms of, you know, marketing could they do to perhaps become more of a community member, if
Right.
you will?
Assuming they want to, that's question
Correct.
number one.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
but I would think they would.
Seems like it.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
So-
the other thing is, it's gonna be intricately involved in the MBTA community's effort,
Right.
which people have got to be, we've gotta communicate that without that, then we have to do something more.
Yep.
But it's also intricately, you know, involved in the whole Littleton revitalization of the common. I mean, this is gonna be a huge driver, along with Northern Bank, obviously.
Right.
But I would think, speaking to the Lupoli, I'm sure they have a very robust PR team. And, you know, that would be some good resources there.
Yeah, so that's kind of the topic that
Yeah.
I would recommend for that day as well. So if you come up with any others, let's let Mara know, but otherwise we'll kind of plan to go with those three. All right, so it is now, we don't have anybody here for public input. So I think, given the time, we can go ahead and open the 7:30 public hearing. And we need to read the public hearing notice.
Yeah, I've been logged out.
Lauren, do you have that for
I do.
Mr. Bartlett? If not, I have a copy.
It's a whole folder I have to read.
That's why I put a tag on it.
Okay, I have to read this. Public hearing zoning bylaw amendment. The Town of Littleton Planning Board will hold a public hearing on Thursday, July 6, 2023, at 7:30 PM in room 103 of the Shattuck Street Town Offices at 37 Shattuck Street to consider a zoning bylaw amendment. The proposed zoning bylaw amendment is to make administrative corrections to Article 32 Firearms Business Bylaw as recommended by the State Attorney General's Office, and is sponsored by the Planning Board according to MGL Chapter 40A, Section 5. The two proposed amendments are narrow in scope and are as follows. 1, amend Section 173-244 to detail the process for revocation of a special permit. And 2, correct a scrivener's error in Section 173-26.a, use regulations schedule to reflect that a firearms business can be allowed by special permit only in the Industrial A or Industrial B districts. The full text of the proposed amendments is on file at the town clerk and planning board offices and can be viewed during their office hours or online at www.littletonma.org. Any person interested or wishing to be heard on the proposed amendment should appear at the time and place designated or provide written comment by July 2nd if possible. The public hearing may also be viewed live on LCTV or online at https://littletonvod, Castus TV/VOD. Please feel free to call the planning board office at 978-540-2425 or email mt2hill@littletonma.org with any questions.
Thank you, sir.
Very good.
Thank you, it was nice not to have to do that this evening.
Good radio voice there, Bartlett. All right, so that opens the public hearing. The Massachusetts Attorney General's Office approved Littleton's February 15th, 2023 Article 10 to allow firearm businesses by special permit in town. And as Bartlett noted, these are two very narrow amendments. At this moment, do we have comments from our board members then?
I thought we had something to do with the map.
No,
Okay,
not for this.
fine.
Thank you.
I did look at the revocation process, and part of that was just the change of a word, wasn't it?
Yes.
You're changing the word from termination
To revocation. Yeah,
and going with the procedure that's outlined in state law for the timeframes for a planning
Right.
board to act on a request, on a revocation.
so that's just to make it consistent with a process that is outlined in other, I think that's fine. And I think it's the Scrivener's error. I love that term.
Town
I
council
mean-
reminds me of it every so often.
Well, that's fine. I mean, these are just sort of housekeeping.
Right, and I think maybe that's where your question on the mapping came up.
Right.
It was, the error was in the table that showed the districts, whether the business district or the industrial B. So that was the,
Okay. Anyway,
Yes.
I have no comments then.
Okay, Lisa?
None for me either.
I read the Attorney General's letter and I approved of the letter and the proposed changes. So I'm in favor of,
Who is our Attorney General now?
Right?
Andrea Campbell,
Andrea Campbell, okay.
right here.
Yeah, okay.
Andrea Joy
Campbell,
Campbell,
okay.
yes. All right, so I also am good with the language that has been proposed. And so the one comment I would have is because we don't have any public comment at this moment, do we want to go ahead and close the public hearing? Do we want to leave it open for any reason? I mean,
Why would we leave it open?
I just wanted to allow for any other public comment, but if
Do you
we,
guys
Do
have
you
any
guys have any comments?
You were asked to be here, so I'm happy to.
well, thank you for being here. We really
Yes.
appreciate it.
Very well.
I mean, my feeling is that,
Yeah. I
The
think
public
that this
has
is
an opportunity and-
So minor.
yeah,
it's such a minor deal.
Yeah,
It's-
terrific.
it's-
All
So
right,
I move that we close the public hearing in
I,
this matter.
I second it.
all right, all in favor? Bartlett,
Aye.
Jeff,
Aye.
Lisa, and Ann is an aye. So we've closed the public hearing then. So now we need a motion to move this to fall 2023 town meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Bartlett?
Aye.
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 Aye. All right, so that passes, and this item will now be requested of the town administrator and select board to add it to fall town meeting.
yep. And then the other vote for the planning board to consider is whether or not you recommend this change to town meeting.
Ah, thank you.
I move that the planning board recommends the changes outlined in the Attorney General's letter.
I'll second that.
All right, all in favor, Bartlett?
Aye.
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 Okay,
All right.
That, now I can prepare the report to town meeting that says the planning board recommends the proposed bylaw changes.
Great.
And you already mentioned it, but thank you to the police department for assistance. They had offered, if there were any questions that came up about the process, or, yeah, well, I guess any questions that came up, so.
Yes, really appreciate you guys being here this evening.
No problem.
Have a nice evening.
Take care.
So there was one more item that we didn't have a chance to address under board business, and that is comments were provided to Maren in reference to Cooper Farm, Dean Lane, and the Affordable Housing Unit that is still outstanding. And so I think we have a question whether or not we would like to discuss that or wait until the next meeting. And I know that I would like to hold off because not everybody here at the table has the information, and I think it's important for everybody to have that information in order for us to have a proper discussion. So I would suggest we table it.
Right. What is the question that's in the air?
Proposed, could we even call it a settlement? I mean, the end of the saga. But is that something that should be done in executive session, or should it be done?
Cannot be done in executive
Okay.
session because it's not current litigation.
Okay,
Yeah.
so then we do have to schedule or put an agenda
Schedule
item.
a
Yeah,
discussion.
or with your permission, I just provided outline of where I think, you share the information that is available now, and then you can hold the discussion at the next meeting.
Okay.
And that way allows you time to get questions in that I can hopefully research or
Yeah.
work with town council on.
I think that would be great.
So we have got a very recent request from Field Development to release the final $40,000 in surety bond for the Cooper Farm Estates subdivision. The bond was, anyway, the issue that I've heard from the planning board and is whether or not there's a way to get that fourth affordable unit built. There's a lot available, one lot available on Dean Lane for construction. The developer has offered that they're not willing to construct that unit. And they're in the process of dissolving the company. The offer was made to sell, for the developer to sell that unit to somebody like Habitat for, and I believe he has reached out to Habitat for $1. And so that, and he was asking if I had a counteroffer. I said, well, I'm not in a position to provide a counteroffer. That would be up to the board to work through that. I was thinking about Jeff's comment from a number of months ago, not to put words in your mouth, but if I'm remembering correctly, if the town does end up spending some of the $350,000 that was paid by the developer to the town as the sale price for the Cooper farmhouse, if that somehow helps get us to a resolution.
I don't remember my comments. As everyone on the board knows, we're just steamed about the whole situation. I have some, before I would, go forward with this Habitat for Humanity, I think we need more input from them. Like, do they know what the lot looks like?
Yeah, they,
Can we get a representation of what they would build? That.
yeah, and I had a conversation with Habitat. I sent them the information on the other affordable units on that. Their comment, one of the comments was that they don't usually include garages on Habitat homes. So the funding for the materials for that they would be looking for would have to look for additional funding for
Okay.
materials for the garage. They would be very pleased to be working with Littleton on one or two or more builds.
I thought, weren't they involved in Brown's Woods somehow, or?
There hasn't been the opportunity to issue the RFP for that,
Okay.
to disposal of that property
So that
yet.
just hasn't happened.
It just hasn't happened yet.
And that's,
The last Habitat house was in 2000 on Harvard Road.
mhm. Yeah, it's been some time.
So this could also be potentially a discussion maybe with even the Affordable Housing Trust.
Mhm.
Yeah, because you're,
Actually, I do have to post the, thank you. I do have to post the trust as a planning board meeting. Would you rather the full discussion there with, well, if everybody's available on that Zoom meeting? Or would you rather have about one discussion at the trust and then the discussion on the 20th at the planning board meeting? So the 18th will be the Affordable Housing Trust meeting, and that's via Zoom.
Yeah,
So-
so what do you think, Mr. Affordable Housing Trust Chair?
And sorry to spring that on you, it just dawned on me
Yeah.
that that would be a
You know,
possible way of doing it. I don't,
well, I think the trust should discuss it. I mean, the trust, well,
So we should add it to the agenda then for the next meeting of the Affordable Housing Trust.
sure, I mean, I think we should at least be aware of it and talk about it.
well, because you might be on the hook for some money for the garage.
And there's no way we could get the Fields to pay for the garage?
well,
Well, you're assuming that the $40,000 surety is gonna come to this deal.
I think we just thank them for the contribution of the garage and keep the 40K.
right, it's a surety bond, it's not cash in on deposit.
Okay.
But I think, to me, the question for the planning board ultimately would be what direction do you want to give town council for offering, call it a settlement agreement? There's no current litigation, but a closure agreement, I guess, on how to respond.
Laura, what about, since the Affordable Housing Trust meeting is next week, maybe providing us with one question that you think the trust should really focus on? And then the question for the planning board is more around, like you said, what direction to give town council. And we'll get that, and then we'll have the input from Affordable Housing Trust to give to the planning board.
And you'll also share with us what
Right.
town council recommends.
Yeah.
Well, he recommends that we don't continue, we don't pursue a path that would lead to further openings for litigation or appeals or whatever. Could you refresh my memory on how Habitat works? I mean, they build the house and then they sell it?
That's what they did before, yeah.
Okay.
It's a
and then- and
lottery
it's-
process.
It's a lottery process, and then it's somehow covenant restricted for,
Yeah,
Yeah, they-
what they did with the house here was, she has a mortgage,
mhm.
and as she pays the mortgage, her equity in the house increases. So at the end of when the mortgage is paid off, she has total equity in it.
But she doesn't have appreciation? I mean,
Not until she's paid off the mortgage.
well, what I mean is, okay, so in
From-
2000, the house was
right, so-
worth
so going-
250, and now it's worth 650, and just because of the change in the housing market, but is it
Yeah, no,
restricted, or?
no.
Well,
no.
the way, there's several different ways to structure it. The state is, I would say DHCD, but I don't remember the new acronym. It just changed last week. They have worked with Habitat for Humanity and restrictions, and they're happy with how those are structured.
Okay,
So
because that
we
would,
can-
the goal of this affordable unit was to be
affordable
restricted in some way.
in
Yeah.
perpetuity.
Right,
Right.
and,
For resale.
Right,
So the usual resale restriction is a few percent per year increase and that's calculated at the resale price. So the owner so we can go through.
but
some
I
of
mean,
those.
that's interesting. So they can use their mortgage to acquire wealth like
yeah.
the rest of us.
And that's why Habitat houses normally aren't counted as part of the 10%
I
that we're
see.
required to have.
Well, we can't count this one anyway because it's age restricted and no minors, so,
Anyway, so, yeah, there's a lot to discuss.
yeah.
But if we can get some input from the others on AHT, I think that would be great,
Yeah.
and then consider that in our
Yeah, 'cause
deliberations.
I believe the question for AHT is, is there room for it to provide a grant to Habitat to cover the, whatever? I would, suggest maybe the, construction supervisor cost, because we heard from them that that's one of their difficulties is getting that cost covered. And, since the garage issue has come up, let me see if that's.
Okay. And then when we get our friend at the CPC to,
Hmm.
get more matching, that'd be awesome.
You know what? I'm sorry, I'm not
I don't
gonna be
wanna-
friendly on the CPC tour just to bail out the fields. I mean, that's.
No. That's not my,
I don't
that's
think
not
that's
my,
on the table.
no.
No.
I was thinking more bigger, longer term. Anyway, well, so we could add this to our discussion then for the next meeting as well? Okay,
Yeah, absolutely.
great. So,
I move that we close this meeting, adjourn this meeting.
second?
Second?
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, we'll see everyone.